This is my next video on countdown, and this is a very strong concept you can use over countdown, giant steps, or any tritonic system. It's using minor triads over each of the chords. I've explained thoroughly the concept in the last video, so you can reference that if this seems unclear. But also in this PDF, which you can download for free on my blog at mattotto.org, I've explained it pretty clearly here. Here we have the common chords to count down in concert key, and above it the triads that I'm using. Basically on the minor chords, I'm using the minor triad built off the 5th degree of the actual chord. On the dominant chords, off the 5th degree, so the C minor triad on the F7, and on the major chords, the minor triad off the 3rd degree, so the D minor triad on the B flat major. So in the last video I talked about the 18 orders of notes. That means that every triad or 3-note structure can be played 18 different ways basically in a closed position voicing. Could be more than that if you use open triads or spread triads, but in this case we'll just use closed position triads. This is a root position melody. The order of notes is 3-5-1, and you can see here this B minor triad 3-5-1. The lowest note is the B natural, and so this is a root position melody, even though we start on the 3rd. The lowest note in the structure is B, so it's root position. Then I play that same melody vertically through the triads that I'm using through the whole progression. So I'll demonstrate that first on my saxophone so you get an idea of how this sounds. I'd like to encourage you to memorize all this material. You should memorize the chord progression to count down, all the triads that you're using as substitutions, and all the exercises should be memorized. This is a common mistake for even my advanced students, which is they try to read material. And jazz is not an art of reading. The reason I have material here that you can read is to share the information, but you need to get it right into your memory right away. So if you're learning from reading, you're actually not learning. Your eyes will circumvent your ears almost instantaneously. You need to do this completely by memory, and then your ears will start to grab onto the sounds. So let's listen to this first example. Okay, so that's the first example of one way of 18 to practice these triads. I'd like to mention that you can, as I've written here in the PDF, displace the 8th notes for these exercises. So you, for instance, could start this triadic melody on the and of 1. You could start it on the and of 4 as a pickup, anticipating each chord. Any sort of way you want to displace it, you could start it on beat 2, and I would encourage you to do that so that you not only learn this triadic melody, you learn how to manipulate it slightly rhythmically. Even though it's a vertical exercise, this will help you gain a lot of freedom with the concept. So after doing this, even just one pattern, then practice improvising a bit. You can go to metronome 40 for that, or 60, very slow. Just practice improvising with the triads after you've done one of the patterns. Then come back to another pattern until you've mastered that. This next pattern we'll look at is a first inversion melody. The order of notes is 5-3-1, so you can see this B minor triad 5-3-1, and the third is the lowest note in the structure, so this is first inversion, a first inversion triadic melody. Again, I play this idea vertically through the progression, and this should be done by memory, and if you need to do it slow at first, go ahead. Let's listen to how this melody sounds. So you get an idea of how this melody differs slightly from the first one, and each of these 18 melodies sound a little different. Again, practice displacing the melody by playing it on the and of 1 or the and of 4 leading into beat 1 or on beat 2. Break up the rhythm. Once you've done this second melody or any of the 18 melodies, practice improvising. So you're going to go back to maybe a slower tempo or a similar tempo, but you're just improvising for a while. And again, this is a good way to learn this concept. You do something concrete and then you juxtapose that against improvising. So let's look at this third triadic melody. This is a second inversion pattern, 5-3-1. Again, the B minor triad, 5 up to 3 down to 1. The fifth degree of the triad is the lowest note in the structure, so this is a second inversion melody. Again, I play this vertically through the progression from memory and then improvise. So let's listen to how that sounds. So this is an introduction to this concept. I would encourage you to spend some time every time you work on Countdown or Giant Steps or one of the Tri-tonic tunes that Coltrane wrote, or perhaps one that you wrote. And over time, this concept will become second nature. It'll become easy for you to use. If you couple this with the concept in the first several videos where I talked about using minor pentatonics, you'll have a multitude of content that you can create and improvise from over this progression. It'll allow you to improvise on the progression without relying on memorized patterns. And of course, learning memorized patterns is fine and valuable and might be another method that you could utilize at the same time. You could be memorizing a few choruses of Coltrane solo or a solo that you've written yourself. And if you have those three concepts at your disposal, you should be able to improvise fairly fluently over the progression. And of course, technique is going to be a limiting factor at a certain tempo. You can like and subscribe to my channel. It really does help the algorithm find my videos and suggest my videos to other musicians and like-minded people.